Good morning to you all, and I thank you for joining me amongst the Shropshire hills. This land that I'm hiking through today, I'm in search of legend and mythology, and this landscape boasts all. Just west of Shrewsbury, we have the legendary hill of Staplestones that is nestled amongst the Shropshire hills itself. You go along towards Rattling Hope just before you head to the Longmynd. You'll start to see the distinctive rocky formations conjuring out from the landscape that stands firm and bare in all weathers. Come here in the summer, the winter, or at the height of rain, this landscape will offer you a dramatic experience from views or just in the land itself. Now this area in Shropshire where I find myself is an area of outstanding natural beauty, and it's easy to understand why. From this location you can see as far as southern Snowdonia, the mountains of Arran and Cadaridris. And when you hike on the other side you can see the Longmynd, Cerrig and the Clee Hills on a bright sunny day. But what draws people to this hill is the characteristics of the rocks that stand behind me. These crozite rocks were developed 450 million years ago. And over the years, they experienced the Ice Age, where intense freezing very much developed and characterised what we can see behind us today. But because of such distinctive rock formations, when people came to live here, stories, legends and mythology started to become a part of the story here. Now, one story in particular is about the devil himself, or which is told to school children around this valley. It is said that the devil was offended with new churches being built at the town of Shrewsbury. Great steeples were being erected with the crucifix of Christ that caused the devil bitter content. So what he decided to do is collect a great amount of rock to bury that town, including the crucifix of Christ himself. But unfortunately for the devil, a great wind and a storm lingered around this mountain and prevented the devil from getting to Shrewsbury on good time. But as he was hiking through the fog and the storms, what he did not notice is that the great pile of rocks that he was carrying started to fall. And by the time he got to the end of the mountain, he realised he did not have enough rock to bury that town. So legend has it that the devil, with bitter content, with the last stones made the devil's chair, where he sits upon and stares with anger and unfortunately regret that he could never meet the town of Shrewsbury. But this story is just a story, obviously. But before the devil was tied to the land here, other stories of mythology was lingering to this land. Pagans, people that lived outside of the Christian realm and law, saw this land as a gateway to their old gods. And unfortunately over the years, especially in the 1600s, if you were pagan, you were very much demonized. And you can kind of understand why this landscape here, which was related to pagans who believed the old way, started to become associated with the devil. It was to kind of destroy the ideology and the aspects of the old people that lived up here and created a sense of evil and foreboding. And sometimes, on days not like this, if you come hiking here on foggy, rainy days, you can really imagine a very sinister, evil presence here if you believed in that sense of mythology. Now the idea of the devil being related to these stones is very much a post-Christian aspect. Because remember, Christianity has only been on this land probably since the end of the Roman Empire. Prior to that, this land has got evidence of ancient worship. There are stone circles around this location, such as Mitchell Ford. And people that lived in Iron Age hill forts, or lived before even when the tongue of Christ came to this land, would have probably related these stones to a totally different aspect that is now, unfortunately, been lost to time. When you do come up here on the day with no high pressure, when the fog is low and the wind is high, and you shelter amongst these rocks, it can feel eerie. And indeed, it could feel that the devil himself is following you and hiding in the shadows. Now the Stoiper Stones is most definitely worth visiting, not only for its dramatic rock outcrops, but the surrounding landscape. Here, on a bright summer's day, you can see towards Cadair Idris, which is along the coast of Wales. But not only that, you can see Arran Valley, and if it's that clear, you can see the peaks of Snowdon. And just behind me, you've got the fields and the plains of Shropshire, with the Wrekin standing tall and firm. But also, right behind me, you have the Long Mynd. Now the Long Mynd is old term for the Long Mountain, and this mountain has a lot of history in itself, from battles to tribal warfare. But one in particular person, an individual that is tied to this mountain, this hill formation, is Wild Edric, an Anglo-Saxon warlord that unfortunately met a cruel end in order to fight for independence of his own people. Now Wild Edric, as far as I know, is a historical figure, but due to legend and myth and storytelling, a lot of what we know about him has become a misty glow. The story that I know is that he tried to fight a fearsome resistance against the Norman invasion. But unfortunately, due to lack of discipline in his own men, as well as rivalries in his own kingdom, he was murdered. His head was buried at one part of the mountain, his body in the other, and it was said that he was cursed to travel this land for an eternity in search of his head. So one eerie story that is told around here is that on foggy nights you may encounter the headless horseman of this ancient warlord. What is also more disturbing is that there is a prophecy. Whenever you see the headless horseman, Britain will surely enter war a year after the sighting.